Hi everyone, Jake from Fulfill. I'm here at Redstone Marketing Design talking with Anthea Iva, a fundraising and design agency that helps purpose-driven organisation achieve their mission by delivering quality campaigns, sustainable fundraising strategy and bold ideas. Hello Anthea.
Hi Jake.
For those who wouldn't have been here live, it's taken me about 5 times to get the name right. So I'm glad we're past that. Tell us a bit about your story and life before being a fundraiser.
Before being a fundraiser. It goes back a little bit, but I guess life before becoming a fundraiser that has to do with becoming a fundraiser is the time I spent travelling. I did the university trip overseas with a girlfriend, fell in love with travel, but decided that it was something I wanted to do more of, but maybe get to places that were off the beaten track rather than stick to Europe and keep that for when I'm older, like now. And so I spent a lot of time in South America and Nepal and Tibet and India, and throughout the Middle East. And in that time I saw a lot of poverty, lack of women's rights, just all those things that really stayed with me when I came back, and it affected me more than I realised. And I was in a corporate job, and but there they were putting me through my Masters of Marketing at Monash, and in that time somebody from the Australian Conservation Foundation came in. They were talking, and it was a really big moment for me to realise that I didn't have to stay in corporate, that there was this whole other industry that I really hadn't given much thought to. So I set about getting myself a job and ended up with Save the Children Australia.
And the role you took on with Save the Children was direct marketing.
It was. So it was a direct mail, like to do the direct mail program there. But what I didn't realise, which I was told later on, was they'd seen my database skills, which was from my corporate life, and we really needed the database set up, and that's really what got me in, not that I knew that. And second to that was the direct mail that I was interested in and trained in. And from that, it just grew. So everyone will know in nonprofit, you wear a lot of hats. You don't just come in and do one role and that's your role. You need to be quite skilled up around other things and be quite flexible and prepared to learn and get in there and do other things.
Yeah, and you said you came in to Save the Children around 2002.
Yeah.
They were just setting up a head office, wasn't it? So a very small team?
Very small team. I think I was the second hired. So I think we got to maybe 4 or 5 people when we were really up and going. And in that, what was fantastic about coming in early was, and probably being able to get the roles that you needed, but there wasn't a lot of resources. So we didn't have coordinators and all other people, backing up those key roles. So there were 4 or 5 of us that became very close. We all had different areas to focus in on, and we really became what you would call now a high-performing team. Not that we recognised it at the time, but everyone was, and I think you get that a lot in nonprofit. People are really passionate into their roles, really trying to do the most with what they've got. And it just went very well for us.
Yeah, it's quite strange to think of Save the Children as a small organisation in Australia at that time. How did that change over the 6 years that you were there?
So luckily, being a global brand, a lot of people in the Australian marketplace had heard of it, usually through travels to the UK where it was set up. So it had a good name anyway, but there wasn't great awareness. And so our awareness grew through the face-to-face program that we started. So the reason Save was going, or we could get together and do this so well, was there was a lot of investment. So we were part of a program where Save the Children UK, Sweden, Norway and the US came together to invest in other markets across the world because they were quite saturated in fundraising, particularly face-to-face in their own markets. So they were investing. So New Zealand was another country, Australia, Italy, and so forth. And so with that investment, we actually had the money to set up our face-to-face program. So we learned from scratch. We went from nothing to getting some great relationships with face-to-face suppliers, how we managed that in-house, how we managed the donor experience, what that donor experience looked like. We had no guidelines for it. So we were doing it as we went, and we ended up, with a program that was recruiting 1,000 new donors a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems like huge expectations setting up in Australia at the time, trying to reach high targets, I assume.
It was. the targets weren't put on us. It's just it just took off. So we had 5 years to return that investment, and we were able to do it in 4 with having such a high performing program. And that's really what started the whole next step into Redstone from that point.
Was there a particular campaign or a key time at Save the Children that really stands out as a defining moment in the success of it in Australia?
For the success of the organisation, it would be around the face-to-face program. So we had long-term sustainable income coming in where we could plan programs and invest in them. And so there was huge growth within Save the Children and the resources and people that we could bring on and do. There were also changes globally as well. So responsibilities across the world for, there was, like, for example, say in Ethiopia, there were 3 different agencies of SAVE working in Ethiopia. So they were sort of standing back globally to look at it and say, all right, well, who's going to be the managing member for that country? And so there was a lot of change and disruption that was going to happen as people sort of took management roles for different areas across the world. So there was very, very big changes. But for us financially to be successful, it would be through the face-to-face program. As a campaign and things that stood out for me as a person, I was lucky enough to go to Ethiopia through Save the Children, and it was one of the programs there, and a little girl I met and her backstory. Both her parents had died from AIDS. She was living with her aunt and uncle, where she was abused and put to work in their cafe, where she was just, basically became a street worker. She was 12 at the time. Where we met her, she was in the first program of one of Save the Children's, and just speaking to her through a translator, what came out was the hope that kids still hold, no matter how terrible their journey and story in life at that time, they really look forward. And she was, I think, 14 or 15 by then, and she had a boyfriend. They were going to get married, they were going to have children, and I was just like, this is like, it was incredibly moving. But when I came back to Australia, I thought, that's it for me, I can't do this anymore. There's just too much need, we can't fix anything, we can't make it right, there's just too much pain and suffering, I'm out. And looking back, I was just like, I really checked out for maybe a month or so, and then I thought, it's not really good enough. Like, you got to dig deep and find something a little bit more. And I think from her, I lost my fear in asking for money. So I became a better fundraiser because of her. Because in the past, maybe I was a little bit like, give if you can. We could really use it. And that was like, we need it. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was a campaign that changed me. But for Save the Children to really get it on that pathway of success and growth was a face-to-face program.
Yeah, so going to the field is incredibly powerful. It shapes not only the work you do, but the life you live.
Exactly. And I wasn't expecting that so much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you returned from the field, you said, you just wanted to switch off and you couldn't do it anymore. How long after the field trip did you stay at Save the Children for?
Years.
Yeah, still
a few years, but I was really, second guessing what I was doing there and what we were all asking for money for, and could we really change anything? And it wasn't until I actually spoke to some people in the programs department within SAVE, and they said, I don't think you've been debriefed. Like, whenever we come back from these visits, we need to talk to people and, talk through what we've seen and who we've met and all of that. And because we were I was probably one of the first from marketing to go, they hadn't thought to extend that to me. So debriefing's important.
Being a bit ready for something like that, for sure.
Yeah.
And so how did that impact the rest of your time at SAVE? Did it help you go from strength to strength? Must have been a lot of learnings along the way. What were some key milestones after that point?
Key milestones. I think, definitely we went from strength to strength. We looked at other ways that we could really look at the database. So coming back to the face-to-face program, I was fortunate enough to be able to start setting up smaller regular giving products. So we had 4 big ones, but it was sort of we look to make one around Australia now rather than global. And smaller monthly asks. So the existing donors we had, we could go back to them and say, hey, Jake, you've given to this other cause before. Would you be interested in $15 a month to do this here in Australia and things like that? So I was able to really start to put into place the products for cross-sell, which has become really important in growing your face-to-face program. So we did a lot there. Another opportunity that came from Save for me was the way the database was set up, and the face-to-face program run through it was there were, say, 3 of us from the marketing team that were taken globally to the other Save the Children's to train and explain what we had done with this program. So they were actually taking back the skills they'd invested in to grow, and then we were going around and having meetings across the world to share these findings and what we were doing here in Australia.
Yeah, it's often easy to reflect on the successful times, the great times, and the things that worked. And obviously during your time, I can only imagine how much it succeeded in that time. Mm-hmm. Was there any times where it didn't go right, or you reflected as a fundraising team that, hey, this didn't work, we've got to pick ourselves up?
Yeah, we had a few of those. You always have a few of those. A good one was we were trying to do a donor get donor referral program, and it was all through email. Back then it was email. There wasn't so much social media or anything like that, but oh my goodness, I don't think we got one. So for all the investment and time and belief, and this is just going to go gangbusters, it was just a disaster. So yes, but sort of a procedural thing that caught us off guard and really just shows how important it is to have a good team and managers around you is there was a point back there where banks brought in real-time processing on credit cards. So it just meant if your credit card had no limit left, usually they would honour maybe, $100, $200 or whatever above your maxed out limit, especially for charities. You could still take your regular giving monthly donation. All of a sudden, overnight, we got no warning. They just cut it. So if you were at your limit, it bounced. And so we just had millions of dollars just come back bounced. I'm just watching it just filter in like, no. And it's like, what's going on? And it wasn't until we spoke to the bank and said, heads up, might have been nice. But so it was how then as a team you work to claw that back and communicate with donors. And so they were big things that can happen. So, and it also tells you about risk and where you've invested your money and what happens when it's not there and why you need to be fundraising across all different channels.
Who picked you up at that time when that happened? Was there influential fundraising director, the CEO?
We did. We had everyone was great. We had a great CEO, which was Margaret Douglas, but we had a great she was our marketing manager at the time, and fundraising marketing manager, Catherine Pengilly, and she very much invested in us to be. The trust was there. It was like, you guys will fix it. You work it out. Just tell me what you need. And it was good to just go and investigate, solve, and get this happening again and have new processes on what we would do without really having to report in and explain everything we were going to do, but you knew someone had your back. So she was a very big part in why we were able to do what we could do.
No, I hear stories of that a lot, just about you need someone to pick a team up and get them back on track. So keep them focused on the mission again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, let's fast forward to 2008, Redstone Marketing and Design.
Yes.
So you made the decision to leave Save the Children, and I think at the time co-found where we are today, and then now you operate it solely. How did you find the transition from going from in-house fundraising team to starting this whole new adventure?
Yeah. So I started with John Durango, who I was working at Save the Children with, and we were lucky enough to have the backing of Save the Children. So they were our first client. So when we left, we knew we had someone. But what had happened and why we thought about doing it was a lot of charities come to us saying, can you explain your face-to-face program and what we can do? So Save was in a really good place. So it was a good time to leave. And so we set up Redstone. So we really were founded on the back of this niche face-to-face fundraising work and appeals, so direct mail appeals. For me, it's been fantastic. Like I do love small business. I love business. And especially now, having an agency that works with nonprofits, you get to work across a lot of causes. So it's so different to just being in one cause. Mm-hmm. So I get to see a lot. I get to meet the people across. I can work on environment. I can work on research. I can work on, children's causes. So it fulfills me a lot in that I can, stay motivated and inspired by the people I meet and the work that I get to work on and learn so much about what everyone's doing.
And it's no small feat who you've had as clients: Breast Cancer Network, Australia, Greenpeace International, Melbourne University, Monash University, Peter Mac, Plan International, Youth Off the Streets. How do you earn the trust of such reputable organisations?
Yeah. Luckily for us, if it's luck, we get a lot of referrals. So that's nice. So always coming in with somebody, having something good to say about you always helps. I think also as we're just a small agency and we're very much, our values I think align quite well with the organisations we work with. So it becomes... there's nothing out of whack. Everyone's there to deliver a really great campaign. It's to raise the most money we can for the cause. It's to respect and nurture the donors. So I think it's just, we work really well as an extension of the team. So the more we're brought in and briefed and, we just feel a part of that campaign, the better we are too. And I think it's just being more than just a contract. It's like we do care. Yeah. And, if something falls over or if something slipped or if they haven't got budget for something that they thought they did, we'll step in where we can and do what we can. So it just works.
So you're a storyteller, storytelling by design, by content. Yeah. Tell us about some of the most impactful stories you've told for NGOs out there.
Well, everyone talks about, all the elements that you need to have a successful campaign, and obviously the story's a big one, but so is your database list and the elements within the pack and how the design fits. But without a good story, you're sort of on the back foot from the start. So a good story will help us engage into it and, really... when we're brainstorming ideas and concepts, things will come out when it is more emotional. But for us, then it's taking that story and making it as relatable as it can be to the person reading, for example, the mail piece. So we don't talk big numbers and, the industry's learned to try and bring it down to a one-to-one. So it might be a picture of one person that you can help change their life or make the difference in, rather than there's 250,000 kids right now who are, humans just can't go, I get that number, that's, it's just like, well, that's big, I can't fix that. So the more we can bring it down to it being relatable and one-to-one, and then wrapping it all up so that you've explained the need through the story, the organisation's the solution, like we're the experts, we know what we're doing here, and just making a really sort of doable action for the donor, which is to give, but they understand what they're giving to and why.
And is that the same for an NGO like Greenpeace, for example? It's connecting with one problem rather than the overall problem?
Greenpeace is a little bit unique because a lot around, and a little bit like Amnesty too, it's about, mobilising donors and getting them to do something and having a voice and really being on the back of advocacy. So Greenpeace are out there trying to change policy or bring attention to something, and it really resonates with a big segment of the population, and depending on where you are also in your life cycle. So, maybe 15 years ago I'd be like, yeah, that's me, like I want to, wave a flag from the top there and I'll support that bridge climb. But so there's moments where people will engage more into advocacy and not. They definitely have a model around wanting more than just, all charities want more than just your donation. They really do want to engage with the donor, and they want to offer opportunities where they can volunteer or become a part of, a petition or, run an event or, so we're all trying to create these opportunities so donors can come in at different points and engage. But ones like Greenpeace, it is about mobilisation. It's like, we need your voice, we need your numbers. We're going to make, a loud clang over here and bring attention to it. So they're all different. So the story there is sort of bigger. You're right. It would be talking about something larger than just a one-to-one. But maybe you just bring it back to, it is your environment. It's what you can do to save it. So it's how you massage it into someone going, that's not too overwhelming for me to help.
Well, Greenpeace does an amazing job, I think.
They do.
Connecting their audience with the cause. They do such a great job of it. So something you're able to do is to go on and help NGOs really utilise their internal systems, whether we go through the database, if you say. So when you go into a new NGO or a new fundraising team and you're looking through the systems for the first time, what exactly are you looking for?
Oh gosh, just probably the structure in how the data is set up so that it can be extracted in a way that you can actually use it. So, and whether they are, some organisations can go a little over the top capturing everything, and that can be really time heavy. And how do you keep it clean? How do you update something if somebody's preference has changed, or that sort of stuff? So it's also coming back and saying, what do you need from it? So what are the metrics you want to be able to measure? What do you want to be able to use this data for? Because a lot of the time you're collecting stuff you're never going to use. So it's bringing it down. So it's understanding really what this tool is going to be used for, and it really should automate a whole lot of thinking and work that has to happen. And it just needs to be easy to be able to extract the data out in a way that it can be used. So just looking for the setup really, and whether they're capturing what they need to deliver, to run the reports they need to be able to measure what they're doing, to analyse donor behaviour. And for me, that comes back to the structure setup.
It's an interesting one. You need to be able to automate as much as possible, as you say, but you don't want to lose that human touch.
Exactly. And we've all seen errors of that, like with letters going out with not their first name, it's you do have to have that human eye over it all the time. But where you can have things automate and say, it's time to send this, or we're going to send this, or now that we've done these 3 actions, it's time for this action, and that really helps a team, I think.
And it's another question that's asked a lot of when to outsource, when to keep things in-house, and systems. Sometimes you don't have the expertise in-house to manage such CRM systems, whatever may be, so it's easy to outsource.
Yep.
Do you find yourself encouraging for the in-house team to really hold on to as many systems as possible?
Personally, I do. Yeah. I think the value of a database is extraordinary, and I've also been with clients who have outsourced, and the time they have to wait to get requests back is not fair. Then costs can go up. You're not in touch with your data. Like you were saying before, you can automate, you can do these things, but you really do need that human moment. I think you need a human from your organisation on your data too. So if it's coming back from a third party, they just don't know what we know, when you're actually in that chair and you're responsible for that data. It's just so powerful. It's so important. And I would say find the money from somewhere else to keep that resource, to get somebody with the skills that know it.
Now, you've got great experience with face-to-face. What does face-to-face look like in the next 5 years? Is it still going to be as impactful as it once was?
I think we're hitting saturation. It's still really important. It's still valuable. It's still offering what it always did, which is that long-term sustainable income that we're all after. However, it's still a supplier's market. It's hard to get capacity, even if you've got the investment to go out and set up a great program. There's been a lot of changes that way, like we've lost some really great suppliers. There's in-house models, which can become a whole, really difficult program to manage in-house. There's a new one that's starting. It's called Rippling, that they're going to do. So 4 charities have come together to set up their own face-to-face agency. How that goes ahead and what it looks like, they're still working through, and it's a fabulous idea. A couple of years ago, Redstone set up Impact Giving, which was trying to bring charities together to collaborate under one room so that they could save on rent and all the overheads they collaborated on. And it was all about regular giving, and there was a week each where the charities could have their week and really explain their cause, but they were from different charities. So we had an environment, hospital, kids and homelessness, whereas Rippling looks to be all children's charities or some, working in that space. So there's differences around it. But what we were trying to do is create a hub where donors would want to come and learn and engage differently with charities, because I really feel as though the way donors give is going to change. So it was sort of inviting them into this hub of, just goodness really, and then listening to everything and then signing up to regularly give to the cause that, struck a chord with you personally out of those. So people are trying different things. I think charities are really innovative. They do take risks. They want to, do great things, and they are. It's just sometimes really hard and cost prohibitive. So the more they can collaborate and work together, there'll be great things.
How have you found the response from charities when you get them to try and collaborate?
They're really good. They love it. It's like everyone's competing for the same donation dollar, but it's just a really helpful industry. It's really informed. There's great skills, happy to share. There's often little groups popping up that might be just, they get together across a whole lot of charities to talk DM, so direct mail. There's a face-to-face group that started up years ago. So they're there to help and support. But I was really surprised with the impact giving, how easy it was to get interest to come in to trial this.
So how's that all evolving now?
The impact giving?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't. It was really hard to get the sign-ups. So we thought if we had young, people who had travelled, seen the need, really engaged with the cause, that they would have a different way of selling, and it could just be this whole different, You need to be a salesperson. You need to be able to sell. The hardest thing is so when people just want to, pull down that person that's on the corner out there trying to engage and sign you up, it is such a hard job. It is such a hard job. So, and you do need that sort of, sales.
A big
gene.
job.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So you say you love to be active in the full donor journey, right from start to end. We won't go as far as saying bequest as the end result, but as someone who doesn't yet know about a charity, right through to the regular giving. So when you are presented with that, when you go to a fundraising team within a charity, what do you even look before even mapping a donor journey?
So it would be, we would have to look at what they're doing already and the behaviours of donors that they've currently got. And then it would be working out what segments are going to work for them. So have they invested in acquisition? So are there new donors that don't really know too much and you're going out to acquire them? Do you have warm donors that are giving all the time, every time you ask? Are there regular givers? Are there mid-value donors? What is your definition of a mid or a high-value donor? So we sort of get the definitions around what those segments are, who on their database would be sitting there now. How did that person that was new now end up as a, $5,000 a year donor through your direct mail? What did you send them and what were they doing? So we look at that because you'd want to mirror that and then, take it even further. So it's definitely using the database, the data, and analysing that to see how donors have behaved over time to become what we call it through the donor pipeline, so to go from a new donor to a bequester, and what you need to do at each of those points to get them through the pipeline. And really it comes down to engagement and how you're talking to them and when you're talking to them and what you're saying when you go. So you wouldn't go out with somebody that's just made a first gift to say, would you like to become a regular giving donor? It's great. They're not going to do it. So, but when is the sweet spot for actually then asking? And do you call and ask, or is it a mail pack? So it's all those things. And not everyone's going to become a bequester, obviously, but the more people you've got in this funnel that you're taking through the pipeline, you'll have good pools of donors in each segment, which is coming back to keeping the risk of where your income's coming from managed well. So it lessens the risk to the organisation when funding dries up from certain spots. So if, acquisition new is dropping, which it is at the moment, how's your regular giving looking? Are you ready to convert some of these on your database to regular giving? So you can start to massage and move that way according to what's happening out, in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's the whole journey. Maybe I will go into bequests a bit soon. But going right back to the start, going from absolute cold to just getting a lead, getting them to take action, creating a bit of noise. It's hard. It's very saturated. Yeah. So what are some key things that have worked for you right at that early stage?
It is hard, like you're saying, and it does cost money. So to acquire a new donor, it does cost money. I think now with social media and using campaigns out there and paid ads, you can start to do some clever stuff without spending a lot. So you've got a better chance of taking them, like we were saying, through the pipeline and increasing the average gift over time. How you make that noise and what you do around that is back to your story that you were talking about earlier. If that's going to resonate, if they can feel as though you're talking to me and I know someone that went through that, or I've been through that, or that is so horrific, I can't imagine it, but yes, I can help. That's the noise you're making. It's an emotional connection into your cause.
Yeah. And do you think, this is another bit of a grey area, which way to go, do you think it's more important to sell the problem, show them the problem, whether it be, poor children, the crisis, or do you share the story of success, the solution?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. So we would always go into one where we might have two case studies. So it's one that's in the need right now and one that's come through thanks to the services that we provide. So you can show the donor that, look, there are kids in this space, but we do have a solution. Our services or our programs do have a positive effect and do make a difference. And here's somebody that's been through. So you try and show the need with the hope and what you can actually achieve. But it is important to show the need. It is important to show the solution, which is usually what the organisation's offering, but try and have two case studies where you've had someone's in the trenches and someone's come through. Yeah.
And it's so easy to just go out and ask and just say, please help us, please donate. Have you found that it's more important nowadays to get them to take an action before asking for a donation, whether it be sign up to a petition or join the community?
Yeah, it's becoming popular. So two-step programs. So there's a lot online now where you might, enter a survey or ask some questions, but basically your email and some details are captured and there might be a propensity there for you to give to that cause. Then what the organisation does with that to convert you into a gift is up to them. So whether it's a phone call or email but yes, so this whole petition. So a lot of countries with their face-to-face started doing a petition type thing to capture the info, get them to sign a petition and then follow it up later. And Greenpeace were very big at that too. So you can do either, but if you're asking someone to put their name to something, you better be doing something with it and really genuinely trying to get out there and change policy or put attention on something that's useful. Otherwise, it's just... it's leading them in and capturing them for it's not going to resonate later and they'll be like, why am I here? So you won't get that first gift or you won't get anything after the first gift. So if you're being genuine about what the petition is and how you're pulling them in, if you like, then yes, you could have a relationship going forward. But if there's if it's not aligned, then you're going to lose that donor and you will have spent that time and money acquiring someone that's just not going to be there long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really.
But if you can massage what you're doing into an advocacy piece, there is a lot of attraction around it. So the one we did for Melbourne Uni, which was around stillbirth, we did, help us break the silence around stillbirth, put your name here. So it wasn't that we could actually do anything further, but it was just a point of saying, yes, this cause means so much to me. I'm there, I'm standing with you, and here's my donation to support the research. So it worked very well.
So at that first donation, you get the single gift. You've really hit the message home to many people out there. How do you create loyalty? How do you get them to become a regular giver and keep them interested?
Well, I think that comes back to how often you talk to them and what you're talking to them about, and are you respecting what they need from the relationship? So if you start talking about something that they didn't come on with, that's going to be a disconnect straight away. So it's small thank yous, it's quick grab updates. Everyone, we know how people have changed the way they read now. So there's scanners, or it's headlines, it's a quote, it's this and that. So if you can just, if it's even just a really great well-designed postcard that goes in the mail that's thank you, you've been able to make this happen, and there's a quick update on it. If you just talk it, like creating a conversation even though you're not talking to them, so utilising email and post and all these sorts of things, that gets the engagement. And because they want to know more about your cause, and the more they know, the more likely it is they're going to give again. But if you start inviting them to events and there's 10 things coming that week and, listen to me, it's just too much, because we're like that if you think about your inbox or anything in your mailbox, if there's too much of anything, you just switch off or you cancel. So it's finding that nice balance. And again, that comes back to what we were saying earlier, is going through the donor behaviour in your database already, so you have an idea of what people want to hear and when they want to hear from you before they become something else. So say with one-off giving, if they're giving, say, 4 to 4 appeals over 2 years, 18 months, then you might send them the conversion pack. So, and that conversion pack would be to regular giving. And it'd be like, Jake, thanks so much. Because of your support in the past, we've been able to do these things. Did you know about regular giving? And you could join this, and just for $15, $30, $45 a month, we could do this, and invite them into this. So you've respected what they've done. You've acknowledged it and gone, thanks to you, we've been able to do this stuff, but we could do this because it's, cost efficient and it cuts down admin and, So, and people understand those needs. So that's how you'd get them onto regular giving. Or if you've got budget, you would phone call, upgrade conversions, and then you start upgrading those regular giving gifts. So it's taking them higher all the time.
You briefly mentioned in there about running an event, and it can be often hard to sort of come at them in, many ways, because there's only so much staff to run an event and there's so many supporters. Do you feel events a key ingredient to successful regular giving, to keep your supporters engaged?
I think if you've got an event where, sometimes, they can cost more than you raise and things like that. I think smaller, more intimate events, so say at a hospital, or if you're doing research, if you could invite them into a small tour of 10 people to come in and meet some researchers and have a tour of the facilities, that is going to be more engaging and worthwhile long term for both the donor and the fundraising department than, a big showy event and things like that. Allowing donors to run their own events and community fundraise for you and do peer-to-peer and things is another way to get them involved and to be proud of your organisation. So if they're doing a fun run for you and going out to their friends, it's a huge compliment, and it is another way to raise funds, and it's fantastic. But if you think about the donor, they really love it, and suddenly they're engaged. So what's your next ask after that? So how do you engage them more into becoming the next segment in your database, so that they can get more from you?
So what's in the future for Redstone Marketing Design? Where do you think you'll be having the biggest impact 5 years from now?
What we would like to do is, because we've been telling stories so long through print and online, we would like to bring that to life through podcast. So we're going to look at launching a podcasting arm to the business, where we can go in and really look for ways to help organisations tell their stories, because we know that we all know about the uptake of podcasts and who's listening and when and where, and how it is a captured audience, which is what we're sort of missing now through our other mediums. So it's a great way to connect and engage. There's opportunities there for non-profits to get sponsorship and things from corporate partners to help pay for it and do all of that, but also how we can turn that into prompting or getting donors to give as well. So we're going to just work in that space for a little while and investigate it, because I just think it would be a great way to really share those amazing stories with donors. that they can just, they can't help but be inspired by. So by the time the next ask comes, or if you need them to, mobilise them or anything, they're just that much more willing.
Yeah, great. And for a lot of smaller charities out there, their databases and donors are very old. They're only getting older, they're not getting younger. There's always the challenge of getting attention for 18 to 30-year-olds, and they're not engaged with charities, or you have to create a lot of noise to get noticed with them. What would be your advice to charities out there looking to capture the audience of younger generation?
I think the younger generation, they really are genuine, and they're looking for organisations that really represent their values, and they have good values. I think small grassroots organisations that are starting up, that are really focused on niche areas, will be very popular with them. We have to be careful of the way technology is moving and creating or lessening the gap between the donor and the cause. So you can go online today and if it was kids in Africa in a school you wanted to help build, you could actually find a cause over there now and give directly there, rather than give to an organisation here that would do that. So I think we really need to watch the way those gaps are closing, and how that generation are more direct and comfortable with technology to connect across and give differently. So I think there's opportunities there, but there's also, things we need to be aware of. But it's around your campaigns and how you frame what you do for it to be exciting or to resonate the way that they're wanting to connect. It's doable. Like they give a lot, they're interested, they're compassionate. So how do we talk to them their way and respect what they want from us?
Absolutely. I think that's really great advice, the way you put it there. I often say that people are connected to a problem in the world, but people don't connect necessarily a charity as the solution to that problem.
Yes.
And, it's connecting with that generation that fundraising teams just looking for so many answers on how to do it. So, So great. That was really good. So are you seeing any trends emerging, new ways of doing fundraising?
Unfortunately, not a lot. I think we need to. I think the ripple that we were talking about earlier is really important. So collaboration amongst organisations to come together where there's a fit and, have a louder voice and also save on resources. Direct mail, like you're saying, the database is getting older. Those people that give via that channel are lessening. What happens, towards the end of that? So we've got to look towards that. I think things with the peer-to-peer giving and events and all of that, that's been new like that, and people are pretty comfortable with that. It's now what's the next thing, and how you're going to engage and keep that going, and just use the different mixes to complement you. Like an integrated campaign really means you can't just send your mail pack. You need to have all the other elements out there as well to just support it. And so a really good thing that we try and do with, and it's not new, but how you do it is important, because it can be really successful, is how you engage the donor in that appeal. So we just did one with ovarian cancer where they are showcasing the carers of people living with ovarian cancer. And we put something in there to say, share the story of your carer, like who's made this difficult journey that little bit easier, and who, is the backbone for you right now. And the stories that have come back are extraordinary. They're extraordinary. So they've come through the mail, but they've also gone online. So we've driven them to Facebook and other areas to share those stories. So then a community starts up there. So new donations are coming in. So it's a little bit like what you were talking about. How do you make noise and get new people that you don't know about? It's through these beautiful moments and sharing these stories that everyone else goes, oh, me too. So it's using the channels and mediums that we have, but really cleverly so they complement, and one might be a driver, but the others really support it, just to take it further and spread these networks.
And it's end of June at the moment.
Yes.
End of financial year's wrapping up, the busiest time of the year for basically, all donation-driven not-for-profits out there. How are you feeling with your client base at the moment who are in that space?
Good. Tax has been really strong, as it always is. It is one of the two big ones of the year. I think we've found a lot of charities are going earlier than they used to. Now some are going quite late. So everyone's trying to jump in and be in that letterbox at a different time to somebody else. So we kind of watch the thinking that's happening and what people are doing. Look, I think, results aren't in. A lot of them are going quite strong. What we have found is, all the narrative out there has been around it, that acquisition and, getting those new donors is really dropping. So, and it is. And whether that was this year in the lead up to the elections, so the uncertainty around that, and then everyone thinking, one party would get in and it was a shoe-in, and then there were going to be all these changes to, tax and income and things, and then that didn't happen. And so whether people weren't giving in that February, March acquisition time as much as they would, if we could put it on the back of that, or is it a sign that that is drying up? So we kind of need to be watching that. But yeah, everyone's gone out with good campaigns, really good strategy, utilising the channels that they can.
Answer. Well, we're down to the final question, so thank you. The last question I always ask is, what's your final piece of advice to inspire and fulfill fundraisers to make a positive impact and create change for a better world? Last piece of advice.
I think where they can, they need to see the effect of whatever it is they're working on. So for me, it was being able to go in and see a Save the Children in Field program. If it's a homelessness cause, it might be going and seeing the services that they do for the youth. Just spend some time and put your hand up and say, I need to connect in with what we actually do here. Because when you're sitting in that seat, and I felt it at Save the Children, you could be in any corporate office doing your job, so you can leave a little bit soulless sometimes. It's not all gushy and passionate and inspiring every day, but you've got to remember that what you're doing is making a difference, because you're part of that chain that delivers whatever happens out in the field. And it's really, really good to talk to other people in the departments across the organisation, because it's a group of passionate people. So you will be inspired and lifted by those around you. Some of the most inspiring people I've found eventually that were sitting right next to me. So reach out that way. Find blogs that you're interested in, subscribe to, you probably know it, the Sophie website. So it's a showcase of all fundraising things. You can go there and see everyone just puts up great examples of work in all the areas that we do. And I've been inspired by stuff there for years. It's so fantastic. Subscriptions to magazines like Dumbo Feather. It's just interviews with great people, a bit like what you're doing, but in print. So you can get inspired there that there are great people out there doing great things, and it can be you. It really can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake.